Well, I knew I wasn't good enough to be a musician, but I love music, and I loved albums, I loved bands, I loved concerts, and I was always a kid that was booking bands in high schools, and then in college I started booking bands, and that's really when I started getting the idea that maybe this is something that I'd like to do as a career. Probably the same skills that apply in anything, but attention to detail is very important. Good communication skills, the ability to communicate effectively with others and put together teams. Concerts or tours or projects, and you need to put together a project team. It's no different from, assembling a group of people that you'd have to produce a film. So selecting people and just really good people skills, really good communication skills. Oh, you definitely learn some lessons along the way. Even with the best of planning, I mean, there's certain things that kind of happen that you just have to react to. But with preparation and planning, you can avoid a lot of the surprises. So, in the early years when you're just getting started and you see what happens when a mistake is made and you see the ripple effect and what can happen, you do everything possible to learn from that and make sure it doesn't happen again. When you book a show or you book an event, I mean, obviously you hope that you're going to sell it out and everybody makes money and everybody's happy, but that doesn't always happen, and it's not uncommon, and particularly now it's kind of tough, and you got to be very careful, and it's very easy to be wrong. So you do need to pay attention to your expenses, and you need to put together really good budgets for the show, and you need to manage all those numbers. And we're pretty conscientious with money, even if it's not our own, if it's our clients. It's promoting shows is a very high risk, low margin type of a business. So the way some larger companies approach it is by doing a large volume of shows. If we're going to make a little bit of money, let's do a lot of shows, and hopefully that'll aggregate, and over the course of a year we'll make the kind of returns that we hope to see. But we try to tackle each show and really focus on the bottom line objectives and trying to meet the financial objectives, and try to get to break even, and then try to get to money as quickly as we can. But certainly I've had plenty of experiences of shows that did not go well, and on top of that, shows that weren't going well where we weren't selling enough tickets, where we had to spend extra money and had extra expenses on top of it. Maybe a situation where an artist was demanding more than you would hope that they would under the circumstances, and you'd hope that they give you a chance to get out and try and break even, and we've had those disappointments before. Well, we consult venues, and I'll explain what that means in a minute, but we consult NFL stadiums. We have 9 NFL stadiums that we consult in a group called the Gridiron Stadium Network. And we're really kind of a booking advocate for them, but when I say we're a consultant, we do help them book shows, but we also help them negotiate deal terms. We help them to be more competitive. We help them evaluate risk. So an example would be Kenny Chesney's going on tour, and he's going to do some summer shows, and he's going to be packaged up with Zach Brown and 2 or 3 other acts. And the package is going for X amount of dollars. I'll help them evaluate the deal, figure out based on the ticket prices that we think are right, what the break-even is going to look like and what they're going to have to do in order to be successful. So that's one example on the stadiums. We have a large group. We have another business called Venue Coalition, which consults arenas that are typically in small markets. And for those guys, we're really helping them get content. We're helping them get shows. It could be a concert, it could be a contemporary Christian show, it could be a family show. So we're engaged on their behalf to talk to agents, producers, promoters, to try and steer content into their buildings. Given the economy, I'm surprised that they continue to build arenas, because typically in a community, that involves them floating some kind of a bond issue, and someone communicating to the tax holders or the taxpayers that building an arena is going to be great because we're going to have all this money coming into your city. And I tend to see those things being oversold to communities with unrealistic projections in terms of how many shows they can deliver. I mean, there are some cities. St. Louis is a great example where there are 3 different arenas and an amphitheater in St. Louis. In Omaha, there's a nice new arena, and across the river in Council Bluffs, Iowa, which is still the same market, another arena. So one is dominant and the other one's suffering. It really depends, but once the arenas are built, they got to get shows in there. So that's really what we do, is try and deliver content. We deal with arenas in our group that are anywhere from 4,000, maybe 4,500 seats on up to 23,000 seats. The Rupp Arena in Lexington is 23,500. It's probably the largest arena in North America. The guys that we like working with the best are the buildings that have really proactive management. So it's not so much the venue size, it's the attitude that, hey, we're going to go out and we're going to make stuff happen. And as a venue operator, you can wait for business to come to your front door, but that's not the way to be in business. You got to go out and get business. So we really like engaging with those active managers that are really interested in doing what it takes to be competitive. And I'll give you some examples. We have an arena in Bloomington, Illinois that competes with another arena that's in Peoria, not that far away. And when I say compete, what I mean is that an act that's touring through, they're not going to play both of those buildings. They may not play either one, but if they're going to play that region, they're going to make a decision between one or the other. So in Bloomington, we need to know all the reasons why it's better to play Bloomington than it is to play Peoria. And we need to help sell that message into agents and promoters and acts and managers. That's part of our job. But they're thinking in a very proactive way about how to do that. The other thing a building can do if they're really on the ball is recognize that the people that are coming to their venue and are taking risk on shows, do what you can to help them. So as a venue operator, if I've got sports teams and I've got this huge database of all the people that have bought tickets to the circus and all these different events, let me make that database available to the promoter that's coming in. So I can, if he's got Avenged Sevenfold coming in and I've sold shows, tickets to Korn or whatever relevant audiences there have been, let me make that database available. Let me send out e-blasts on his behalf. Let me do whatever I can. It doesn't cost me anything extra. I want this promoter to be successful in my building. I want him to make money here, and I want him to continue taking risk and bringing me shows. So again, just gets back to the notion of being proactive, but those are the kinds of people that we really want to engage with. And in our group of 57, 58 arenas, we've got some very sharp venue operators that know what needs to be done, and we've got others that need help, and that's why we're there. Well, I think the social networking is a critical tool now. Over the past 15 years, I've seen how differently people purchase tickets. People used to go to stand in line at the box office, to camp out even, overnight, so that they'd have a chance at buying the best tickets. And then as tickets became computerized, that became more of an old kind of there was no reason to do that, because the same ticket in theory was available to every consumer, whether they're at a ticket outlet somewhere, on the phone, whatever. Now the majority of ticket purchases are online purchases, so reaching people through emails and through social networking is critical. It's also, once you develop your database, it's also the most cost-efficient way to promote. You'll promote shows differently based on the demographic of the audience you're trying to reach. With an older demo show, you may still do TV and you may still do print, but a lot of other concerts you wouldn't even think to spend money on print. So I think technology in terms of getting the word out, marketing, and kind of mining that database is really critical. That's probably one of the single biggest benefits to new technology. I don't think camping out to buy concert tickets definitely endears you any more to that artist. I think people looking for convenience, they've got busy lives, and I think people are willing to spend money to do things in a more convenient way. I do think a lot of thought needs to be given to the fan experience and how the fan's treated, and I think certain bands have done a much better job of that. I think there are bands out there, Dave Matthews, Zach Brown, there are bands out there that are really conscious about creating and maintaining a culture for their fans and a line of communication in a way that the fan gets treated and the kind of tickets that fan can purchase. It takes a lot of work, it takes a lot of investment for these bands to do it, but they've maintained their audience by taking care of them. I think the business in general has done a bad job of treating the fan. I think the fan's really gotten the raw end of the deal, and for a number of different reasons. The fan experience, going to a concert is expensive, it's inconvenient, access to good tickets is almost impossible buying a ticket at face value, and all these things kind of stack up, and after a while you just start to go to fewer shows, and we've definitely felt that over the past few years, and it's something we got to fix. I think there's a lot of things that need to be undone, and I think there's a lot of damage that's been done that might be hard to fix for a while, really at both ends of the spectrum, because the older artists that don't work that often and don't have that many tours left, right? If you look at a lot of the heritage acts, the Billy Joels, the Elton Johns, whoever they are, Aerosmiths, there's only a certain number of years that they're going to continue to tour, Fleetwood Mac. So, those tours tend to be kind of a money grab, and I get that. And what happens with that is you're paying the artist a bigger guarantee, which of course inflates the ticket prices, and it's really hard for the fan to want to continue to go back and again. So that's a problem. One of the other things that's happened in recent years is, and you've seen it a lot in the summer months in the amphitheaters, is that a lot of heavy discounting of tickets. So Lilith Fair was a classic example last year where Lilith Fair went on sale, tickets were soft, and they immediately went to a 2-for-1 discount. And literally there were people sitting in the same seating section that had paid full price that were sitting next to someone that had bought the same ticket literally 2 or 3 weeks later for half price. That doesn't make the fan very happy. That doesn't make you feel good about this business. It doesn't make you feel good about spending the money. It just makes you feel kind of ripped off, and it kind of rubs off on everybody. You don't like the promoter, you don't like the artist because of it, you don't like, So I think a lot of the artists are cutting these deals and then not realizing how the promoter has to monetize these things, and it becomes problematic. So those kinds of things are going to take a while to fix. The other thing that's really different is, the concert industry is really, the concert industry is maybe a 40-year-old industry, the rock concert industry for sure. And it's evolved a lot. And in the early days, there were fewer acts that were touring. There was a lot less traffic. That's one. The other thing is you didn't see these groups. You couldn't turn on television or the internet and see these groups. There was no MTV. There was no access to see these acts. So going to a live concert was a big event. It was a big deal. And so there's so much more content out there that making the concert event experience really an experience is something that I think we've got to give a lot of thought to. I don't have it figured out, and the guys that are doing 25,000 shows a year don't quite have it figured out either. But it's something we got to figure out. We got to make the concert experience affordable. We got to make it exciting for fans, and we got to make it so that they want to continue to come back, as opposed to saying, "Gee, I can really only afford to go to 2 of these things a year." I've always been kind of had the mindset of wanting to be on my own, be an entrepreneur. And at the time, and I'd run businesses for other companies, and certainly gained a lot of experience in that period of time. When it was time to make the transition to start my own thing, it was more out of frustration with what I was doing and just wanted to do it. And quite frankly, it was with a lot less of a plan than I should have had. It took me really the first couple years to figure out what I was really doing. And when you start a small business and in the beginning it's just you, it's just that. It's you wake up in the morning thinking about, oh my God, what am I going to do? And you go to bed thinking, oh my God, what am I going to do? But it turned out well. I mean, it's turned out great. We've been extremely fortunate. And actually, I've had my own business since I think about 1993. I really want to leave the company I was with. They begged me to stay, so I said I'll stay. But while I'm staying here, I'm starting my own business on the side, and I had a couple management clients and a couple things that I was doing, and it made the transition a little bit better. And then, my business for many years was just a project-driven business. So largely it was Neil Diamond tours, and we did some pay-per-view stuff that we were doing in Texas, and there were live events, but sometimes there were live events that had a broadcast component. I ran the business for years, and then I did close the business for 1 year to go to work for a client. We had a big project we were doing for Fox TV that kind of imploded, and we just finished a tour with Neil, and we'd had a great run of dates, and I figured, I'm going to spend the next 6 months just chasing business. Why don't I just shut everything down, go to work for these guys? So I did, and I ran the entertainment marketing division for a company called TBA, and instantly knew it was the wrong decision for me. Wow. And they were friends of mine. They were people I'd known for years. It's just that I went there to run an entertainment marketing division that was involved in producing live sponsored events, many of which were also televised broadcast events. It's just that a lot of the programs they were running, they had overpromised to sponsors and underdelivered, and I kept having to lay people off. Every time we'd complete a program or a tour or something, I'd have to let people go, and after a while there was no one left to help me, and I thought, it's time to shut this down. So Neil had called me at that point in time, and we were going to get ready to do another tour, and that was I basically just started my own business back up again and have never looked back. But it definitely crystallized for me that I want to always have my own business. I don't want to work for somebody else. One of the advantages of having a small business is you have to know a little bit about a lot of different things. And certainly in the earlier years of having my own business, you will go to meetings and people will say, do you do this? And you'll say, absolutely. Absolutely we do that. And then you figure out how to do it. And then you've developed that skill set. I mean, we did that with pay-per-view, we did that with broadcast, we did that with a number of different things that I really hadn't had a lot of experience in. But the businesses that we're in, at the core, we produce, manage, and promote live events. We don't do it with our own money. Our clients are artists, our clients are venues, our clients are sometimes corporations or organizations, but at the core, we're usually involved in producing an event for somebody else. It could be a private corporate event in Italy with Diana Ross. It could be a private corporate event with Michael Bolton in Hawaii. It could be we're working on something now in Odessa, Texas. We've got an offer out on Rod Stewart, you know, for a grand opening of a theater. So a lot of one-off things more so than tours. Now, we're involved in all kinds of different stuff. Right now, we're also doing we're actually promoting or co-promoting as a partner a series of children's shows, characters called Max and Ruby, which are on Nickelodeon television for preschool-age children. And I think we probably have maybe 15, 16 cities. Not a whole tour, but you know, this city here, this city here, this city here. I have an artist that I manage named Gary Hoey. I've known Gary for quite a long time. We've had mutual friends, and Gary's kind of a classic rock artist. He's been writing, recording, touring for 20 years. Had him out last year with Jeff Beck as a support act, and Knockwood will be out on a 24-city tour with a couple other big classic rock acts this summer. And then the rest is the venue consulting. And we're also starting to work more and more with theaters as a buyer, as a talent buyer. We've got a theater in California, and we just picked up another theater in California. So I suspect that within the next couple of years, we'll have a small group of maybe 10 or 12 theaters where we'll be actively buying and producing shows for them. It really comes down to, who is your client? Client's the guy that pays you. People forget that sometimes because everyone is trying to make sure that the act is happy, but if the act's not the one that's paying you, and it's the client, the guy that paid you to go out and get this act, never forget who your client is. That's step one. And understand what your client's needs are. So if your client's an artist, that's fine. If you understand what their needs and their objectives are, then you can better address those and you can better deliver on all those items. Same thing if it's a corporate client or a venue. So it's just really understanding what their needs, what their objectives are. I'm a big fan of strategic planning, and we actually, that's another thing that we've done over the years is we've been engaged as a consultant. I've done strategic planning consulting for AEG, for example, in helping them come up with a strategy of where they were going to open up their offices around North America. They were trying to come up with some rationale for carving the country into territories and figuring out how to divvy it up. So I like having a plan, and I like having short-term plans, and I like having long-term plans. So, with an artist, there's usually a plan, and not to say that we're the only guys deciding what we're going to do, but we're a part of figuring out what we want to do and then figuring out on a map, laying it out to see when it happens. So, using an artist example, artist has an album coming out. And this is an artist that's been gone for 3 years, now they're coming back. So the album gets released, that's when we do the Today Show, the Tonight Show, Ellen, boom, 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 boom. That's when we put all the cities on sale. So, and then there's a strategy to the touring. We want to play all the major markets as early in the album cycle as we can. So there's no reason to be in Sioux City, Iowa when the album's out. We need to be in Chicago, Detroit, Philly, New York, so on. So there's always kind of a plan, or there should always be a plan, and that's a big part of what we do is, guys, whoever's in the room, what's the plan? Let's come up with a punch list, let's figure out who's doing what, and let's come up with a timeline for how it's going to get done. I mean, I've done tours where there was no album at all.
Does that have a different strategy?
Not necessarily. I mean, it really depends on the artist and what they want to do. I mean, artists work for a bunch of different reasons. I mean, there's some artists that do tours where they're really just essentially visiting radio stations, or maybe doing some of the big radio station shows where they'll go and they'll do like a 20-minute set, which is very different from putting together their own arena tour. So there are different kinds of tours and there are different reasons for touring. I mean, there's there are more efficient ways to tour, you know, and again, that really depends on the artist. I mean, Michael Jackson, when he did tour, you know, he could do no more than 3 shows a week. You know, there's certain artists that they just can't do a lot, and that means you've got a very expensive tour because you got a lot of people sitting around waiting to do 3 shows a week. So CD or no CD, I mean, that hasn't been a big. I've never really done the promo types of junkets where they're just flying around going to radio stations. That's not what we do. We do the routing, the booking, the advertising, the marketing, the on sales, the whole deal. You know what? I see a lot of resumes, and I do pay attention to, you know, students that do come from places like Full Sail or Berkeley or your program here. We've hired some students that have come out of different music school programs. We have an intern in our office right now. We have a Berkeley grad in our office right now. I think the things that can help prepare someone for that job search that will set them apart is a knowledge of the industry and a knowledge of the players in the industry. So, you know, by taking advantage of, you know, trade publications, Billboard, Polestar, you know, whatever information you can find, read up about it and start to get a knowledge of, you know, after a while, if you stay with it, you'll start to get a knowledge of, you know, names that you'll recognize, people that maybe, you know, this guy represents this act, this person is at this label. And also even amongst the students that are graduating are going to go out in the world, and some of them are going to find opportunities. And kind of networking and staying connected to those people will all help. Sometimes I tell you, in terms of just the simple things that separate one person from another is just good communication. And you know, it's such a simple thing. And you know, taking the time to handwrite a note, a thank you note. If you meet someone, thank them. Send them your information, thank them. If you meet that person and you kind of connect with them, you notice a few months down the road that you read that they got a promotion or they signed an act, send them a note. Just find ways to connect with people and stay connected with people. You know, if you can, for some of the students, if you can find ways to intern at some of the music conferences, I mean, I got to believe South by Southwest has lots of internship opportunities. Just take advantage of all those. Anywhere you can get some level of experience, because it's hard getting out of school not really having experience. You took courses, and you know, the guys that have been around for a long time think, okay, we just got out of class. That's great, but you know, show me what makes you different. So you've got to stand out. I know that's your question, but I think really good communication skills and developing as much knowledge and as many contacts as you can before you're out there looking is going to help you. You know, the business has become very transparent, and the deals have become very tight for everybody. I mean, everyone in the food chain has been really having to shave their expenses. And the venue's just like everybody else. Everyone's, you know, the promoters, you know, the acts are driving deals to the promoters. The promoters are saying, gee, Mr. Building Guy, I need help. I need a piece of the popcorn. I need a piece of this. I need you to whittle these expenses down. And so everyone's kind of getting squeezed. And, you know, it becomes a delicate balance for a venue to make a certain deal for one guy that maybe someone else might find out about. So that is a problem, because the business has become very transparent. You just have to be very careful. I mean, you know, you want to incentivize people that are coming to your building and bringing you content. I mean, particularly if these are guys that stand to lose money. You know, you don't want to get hurt so badly that they don't ever want to come back. So it's not uncommon at all, for example, for a promoter to go to a building, get hurt, and go to the building and say, you got to help me out, and expect to get some kind of help. And often they will. You know, particularly if it's someone that's reputable, that's going to continue to bring back business. If it's a fly-by-night guy, that's the other end of the spectrum too. Is, you know, as a venue operator, you'll hear from guys that want to produce a show 4 weeks from now with an act that maybe they have a relationship with, but they probably don't. And I get those calls all the time. You know, you got to weed through all that stuff. I think you've got to weed out. I mean, there's just a lot of wannabes. You've got to weed them out, because if someone doesn't have the relationship, if they don't have the money, if they don't have the credit, and they put something on and you don't know who they are, you don't know if it's legitimate, the show cancels, it's bad for everybody. So yeah, you don't want to be booking bad business, and you know, you want to be developing relationships. I'm a big fan of, I want to be in business with people that want to make money. I want to work with people that make money. That I want to make money together. You know, I just think it's good business, and you know, that's how you deepen your relationships. And you know, there are people that believe, you know, certainly on the artist side, there are people that believe that if the promoter made money, that the act made a bad deal. it shouldn't be that way. You know, the promoter's taking all the risk. He should be entitled to make something. You know, what's happened instead is the margins have been so thin, the promoters have had to get crafty, and they've all done things that they shouldn't do. So that's another part of what's gone on. Well, I mean, the established acts is, you know, the established acts are all represented by agents that are selling the dates, and usually, I mean, the tours are being routed either by agents or promoters. If the tours are being routed by promoters, it means that they know that they're going to get the act in that market. There may be a situation where the promoter has the act in all the cities, the entire tour. If it's not that situation, the agent, whether it's from William Morris, CAA, Paradigm, or whatever, he's routing the tour, he's holding the dates, and he's ultimately going to be the one to get offers from promoters. So, you know what, I got Peoria held on Thursday, September, whatever. You know what, I'm going to call promoter A, B, and C and see if they want to buy the show. Hopefully I'll get three offers and I'll be able to pick the best one, or at least go with the guy that I think is going to do the best job promoting the show. So typically it's not about the act having to show their worthiness to the venue. Now if the venue is taking risk in buying the show, and again this is really a non-traditional kind of a circumstance. I mean, because in this instance I'm talking about the venue actually acting as a promoter. Yeah, they need to make sure it's the right risk for them, you know, because, you know, I mean, if you lose X amount of dollars doing I don't know, Michael Bublé's show, that might be different than if you lose X amount of dollars doing Marilyn Manson, and you've got to be in the city manager's office on Monday morning and explain why you took a risk on. Every circumstance is different, you know. It's in the venue side, at least on larger venues, it's not a function of the act having to convince the venue why it's worthwhile. Now moving down a size into theaters, and we have a theater that we booked that's a 1,500 seat theater, and we get pitched by agents all the time, and they'll try and tell us why it's a great idea to take their act, and you know, if it's something that makes sense, we'll run the numbers and we'll kind of back into an artist guarantee that we think might be right. But a lot of times we just don't think it's the right thing, and we'll tell them, and you know, they'll have to go fill the date somewhere else because we're not buying it. You know, if you ask any of the kids that work with me in my office, they'll tell you that the one thing they probably know right off the top of their head is that you can never know too many people. It's just that simple. You can never know too many people. You never know. It's a young business and it turns over a lot, and you never know when, you know, one of your classmates is in a mailroom that 5 years from now could be an agent. Eddie Vedder was a runner in San Diego. When we did concerts in San Diego, I didn't really know him. He was a runner. He was a kid that ran errands. Someone needed shaving cream, he'd go buy the shaving cream, whatever. And I stopped doing shows in San Diego, but you know, look what he became. You just never know.